Good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. Sajid Kumar, ENT specialist, KIMS Qatar Medical Center. The topic I am presenting today is one of the common emergencies in ENT, that is nasal bleeding. It is otherwise known as epistaxis. It is an alarming situation to the patient, relatives, and even to doctors not specialized in ENT. Epistaxis is a Greek term meaning flow from above. Epi means above, staxis means flow. So epistaxis means flow from above. This condition had been described even in ancient medical literature. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, described a condition known as vicarious menstruation. So even though rare, it can occur even in gynecological condition known as endometriosis. Today, I am going to discuss briefly about the causes, diagnostic approach, and management of nasal bleeding or epistaxis. Before going to the topic proper, I will talk briefly about the anatomical aspects. Why this nasal bleeding is so common? It is because of the peculiar blood supply of the nose. Nose has got a very rich blood supply from the branches of external carotid and internal carotid arteries. These are the main blood vessels of the head and neck. And there is anastomosis between the branches of the arteries and veins. And these arteries or branches of these arteries run beneath the mucosa, often unprotected. So even minor trauma may cause bleeding. Another thing is, these large blood vessels often run in bony canals and there is no scope for proper contraction when bleeding occurs. So these are the reasons for recurrent nasal bleeding. Then what are the common sites of bleeding in the nasal cavity? Majority of the cases, the bleeding is from within the nasal cavity. Rarely it can occur from the skull base, especially in head injuries. What are the common sites of bleeding in the nasal cavity? The commonest site of bleeding is in the antero-inferior part of the nasal septum, here. It is in the front part of the nasal septum. Here, 4 blood vessels are communicating or anastomosing. This area is known as Little's area. Another site is in the back of the nasal bridge or nasal septum. This is known as Brown's area. Then in the lateral wall of the nose, there is another area known as Woodruff's area. In the lateral wall, 3 projections are there. These are known as turbinates, inferior, middle and superior. So in the inferior turbinate, in the back side, there is a venous plexus that is known as Woodruff's plexus, and this area is known as Woodruff's area. This is also one of the commonest sites of bleeding. Then above the middle turbinate, there is the commonest site of bleeding in hypertension or high BP. Another site is the middle meatus, that is area below the middle turbinate here. So these are the common sites of bleeding in the nose. Then causes. I am not enumerating all the causes. There are so many causes. I will discuss some common causes in various age groups. First of all, children. In children, it is often traumatic. The commonest cause is nose picking, that is putting finger inside the nose. Then foreign bodies in the nose. Then infections and bleeding disorders. Then adolescent age groups. It is often idiopathic. Idiopathic means without any cause. Then middle-aged and old people. The common causes are hypertension or high BP. Then cancer of the nose, sinuses and nasopharynx. Then causes in all age groups that is deviated nasal septum, trauma, infections and bleeding disorders. Then systemic causes. In the case of recurrent bleeding nose, always rule out systemic causes. The common systemic causes are hypertension or high BP, valvular heart disease like mitral stenosis, liver disease, kidney diseases and infections. The common infections are exanthematous fever, that is fever with rashes like measles, then hemorrhagic fever like dengue fever, then leptospirosis or rat fever, then whooping cough and typhoid fever. So these are the fevers causing nasal bleeding. Then diagnostic approach. Epistaxis is a medical emergency. When we see a patient with a nasal bleeding, we have to do 4 things. First thing is assessment of the general condition of the patient. Second is control of bleeding or arrest of bleeding. Third is investigation to find out the cause. And lastly, treatment of the predisposing cause or pathology. We will see one by one. Assessment of the general condition. In a case of bleeding nose, usually the patient and relatives are in panic. So we have to reassure the patient. Then keep the patient in the upright position, upright or semi-sitting position, and not in the lying down position, unless in shock. Then take the vitals, take the pulse and BP. The bleeding can be mild, moderate or severe. In mild cases, usually the BP is stable, whereas in moderate to severe cases, there will be hypotension. So that situation, we have to start an IV line and start an IV line and take a blood sample for cross-matching. Second step is arrest of bleeding. This is by external nasal compression. That is by pressing or compressing the soaked part of the nose. The anterior or front part of the nose is soaked and it is composed of cartilage. So compress the anterior part of the nose with the thumb and index finger for 5 to 10 minutes like this. And ask the patient to breathe through the mouth. If blood comes in the mouth, ask the patient to spit it out. Then apply some ice packs over the dorsum of the nose in the outside. Apply ice packs over the dorsum of the nose. Avoid weightlifting and laughing. Usually in mild epistaxis the bleeding stops and then we have to examine the nasal cavity or we can do a nasal endoscopy. If bleeding point is seen, we can cauterize the bleeding point using a chemical. Usually we use silver nitrate. Next step is, in the case of moderate to severe epistaxis, this external nasal compression is not sufficient. So that situation we have to do some other measures like nasal packing. Usually we pack the nose with a ribbon gauze. Otherwise we can use other materials like Merosol tampon, or we have to, if in severe epistaxis, we have to use a postnasal pack. Another technique is nasal endoscopy and cauterization, then arterial ligation and embolization. So these are the other methods for control of epistaxis. Then third step in the management is investigation to find out the cause. Once the bleeding is under control, we have to take a proper history. Usually we ask for history of fever, trauma and drug history. Ask the patient regarding drug intake. Drugs like aspirin, dipyridamole, clopidogrel, heparin, warfarin. These drugs are usually taken by heart patients. So all these drugs increase the bleeding time and clotting time and induce bleeding. So we have to titrate the dose of these medicines in consultation with the cardiologist or physician. Then investigations, usually we ask for complete hemogram or CBC, bleeding time, clotting time, prothrombin time, peripheral smear, INR, blood grouping, then liver function test and kidney function test in middle-aged and old people, then radiological investigation like X-ray paranasal sinus, CT PNS or CT paranasal sinus in selected cases, MR angiogram, that also in selected cases. So these are the investigations. Then fourth step in the management is treatment of predisposing factors. If any positive findings in the investigation, we have to treat it accordingly. Then supportive measures. In the case of epistaxis, usually we give local and systemic drugs. The usual local drugs given are saline ointment, then Vaseline or petroleum jelly, then hemocoagulant drops like Botropase drops. This can be given. Then systemic medicines like vitamin C, ethamsalate, then injection Botropase, injection vitamin K if there is deficiency or patients with liver disease. Then epsilon aminocaproic acid. These are the usual systemic agents or systemic drugs given in a case of epistaxis. Then blood indications for blood transfusion. Blood transfusion is indicated in severe epistaxis. Second is if there is rebleeding after pack removal. Then hemoglobin less than 7.5 milligram percent. Then patients with bleeding disorders or coagulopathy. So these are the indications for blood transfusion. Then some recent advances. In a case of moderate to severe epistaxis, conventionally we use ribbon gauze for nasal packing. It is usually traumatic and painful to the patient. Nowadays we use Merosal pack or Merosal tampon. It is for mild to moderate epistaxis. So this is a Merosal pack. It's a gel foam like material. It swells up inside the nose. It is very comfortable to the patient and less traumatic. There is a tube in the center. You can see a tube in the center so that patient can breathe through the nose. That is another advantage. Another device for packing is intranasal balloon. Silicone inflatable intranasal balloon. Two bulbs are there. Two inflatable bulbs. One for the nose, another for the nasopharynx. It can be inflated and these bulbs exert pressure inside the nose and the nasopharynx and control bleeding. So this is also less traumatic and comfortable to the patient. Patient can breathe through the nose also. It's a tube. Another recent advance is nasal endoscopy and cauterization. We have to do a nasal endoscopy and find out the bleeding point and cauterize. Usually we do electrical cautery. Then endoscopic arterial ligation. It is done under anesthesia. The usual vessel ligated is sphenopalatine artery. This is known as TESPAL. That is transnasal endoscopic sphenopalatine artery ligation. TESPAL, TESPAL, transnasal endoscopic sphenopalatine artery ligation. So we have to do a nasal endoscopy and the sphenopalatine artery is identified after mucosal flap elevation. The artery is usually clipped or coagulated. So this is a very effective method for controlling resistant epistaxis. Another technique is selective embolization under angiographic control. This is the latest technique for control of bleeding. So this is an angiogram. You can see a bleeding point here, and this vessel is bleeding, and in this picture that vessel had been blocked by an emboli here. So the bleeding stopped. So this is a very effective technique. We can minimize the hospital stay. Only thing is the treatment is little bit expensive. So these are the recent advances in the management of epistaxis. Lastly, some guidelines. As I told earlier, in a case of epistaxis, always keep the patient in the upright position, avoid weightlifting and laughing, do external nasal compression in the anterior part for 5 to 10 minutes. Ask the patient to breathe through the mouth. If blood comes in the mouth, ask the patient to spit it out. Then put ice packs over the dorsum of the nose, that is over the outer part of the nose. Then some advice to doctors working in the emergency room. If you strongly suspect skull base fracture, never pack the nose in a case of epistaxis. Second is, if you pack the nose in a case of epistaxis, always start antibiotics to cover staphylococcus bacterial infection to prevent staphylococcal toxic shock syndrome. And one more, if you are putting a postnasal pack, that is a pack behind the nose, never sedate the patient. This is in short of bleeding nose. I will answer some of your questions. First question, what we have to do immediately if we see nasal bleeding, and what immediate measure to control it for further bleeding. I have already discussed this. I will repeat once again. Keep the patient in the upright position. Do external nasal compression for 5 to 10 minutes. Ask the patient to breathe through the mouth. Put ice packs over the dorsum of the nose. These are the first aid measures. Second question, is the management of nose bleeding different in children and adults? There is a definite difference is there. There is a difference in the type of bleeding, severity of bleeding, and management also. So the type of bleeding in children, it is usually venous, whereas in adults and old, it is usually arterial. And severity in children, it is usually mild, whereas in adults and old people, it is usually severe. Then cause also different, already mentioned. In children, it is usually traumatic or infection are the causes, whereas in middle age and old people, hypertension, then arteriosclerosis, that is vessel wall changes, and malignancy or cancer are the usual causes in middle age and old people. Then management also there is difference. In children, usually the bleeding responds to external nasal compression and ice packs, whereas nasal packing, arterial ligation and cauterization are required in adult and old patients. Third question, why is in hot summer chance of nose bleeding? In summer season, nasal bleeding is common. It is common in winter also. In summer, the cause is usually the hot air enters the nasal cavity and there is chance of dryness of the nasal mucosa. As I told earlier, the blood vessels in the nasal cavity are not well protected. So whenever there is dryness of the mucosa, the chance of bleeding is more. Fourth questions. What is the home management before reaching the hospital? Already mentioned this. Fifth question. Is there any chance of bleeding in sinusitis and migraine? In migraine there is no chance of bleeding, but there is chance of bleeding in sinusitis. The cause is inflammation of the nasal mucosa and vascular congestion. Next question, will continuous use of nasal spray causes nasal bleeding? Different nasal sprays are there. Continuous use of steroid nasal spray in allergic rhinitis may cause nasal bleeding. It is due to atrophy and dryness of the nasal mucosa. We can prevent this by applying saline nasal ointment, or we can combine saline nasal spray with steroid nasal sprays. So there is no need to stop steroid nasal spray. We can combine steroid nasal sprays with saline nasal spray, or we can apply saline nasal ointment. So if you have any further doubts, you can contact me in the clinic or you can email to me. Thanks for the patient hearing.